Hello, Maddie, Anastasia, Talia, Sarah, Jasenia, Suzanne, and Lauren. I'm sorry we can't be together today, but it is commencement day for Bay Path University. So first order of business is congratulations, Jasenia. I know you're graduating today, and I hope you have a really wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you and everybody else next week. I just wanted to say a few things about the discussion forum and the lecture by Michael Sandel, how we think about what is right, what's justice, how do we determine to do the right thing. So for the trolley problem, all of you agreed that it was permissible to turn the wheel on the trolley and go from the main track onto the side track in order to avoid killing the 5 workers on the main track, even though that would result in the death of the 1 worker on the side track. All of you said that pretty much that's a reasonable thing to do, that would be the right thing to do. It would still be for some of you, a very painful thing to do, but that would be the course of action. And you offered a variety of different moral justifications for that. So some of you said this is a case of utilitarianism. 5 lives are clearly of more value than 1 life. 5 deaths would result in a lot more suffering than just 1 death. So in order to promote the greatest good for the greatest number, we turn the wheel and go on the side track and kill the 1 worker. One of you talked about deontological ethics, and I think that you can get to that conclusion with deontological ethics, but it's a kind of a more sophisticated deontological reasoning. At first look, you might say, no, as a deontologist, I can't turn the wheel and run over the 1 worker to save the 5, because then I would be treating that 1 worker as a means to saving the 5 other lives, and that's illegitimate. It's always illegitimate to use a person as a means. All persons are ends in themselves and need to be treated that way with respect for life, so it would be inappropriate to do that. However, there is a line of moral reasoning called the doctrine of double effect, and you could look that up in your book. It's on page 84 and following. And basically, the doctrine of double effect has to do with intent. That intent is very important to deontologists. Remember, utilitarians focus on what are the results, and the results are what matters. And deontologists focus on the intent of the moral actor. The intent is what matters. The results are not really the issue. So with the doctrine of double effect, if you have a situation in which you're able to perform an action that results in a bad outcome for some people, but also has the effect of a great benefit for others, for a larger number of others, it is in some cases permissible to do that, and it's not treating a person as a means only. So the doctrine of double effect basically says that the act itself cannot be immoral. So in other words, if you have 100 people and you could save 100 people's lives by shooting 1 person, you can't do that, because shooting 1 person is immoral. That is clearly intending their death, and that's an immoral act. So you can't do an immoral act in order to produce greater good. And then the doctrine of double effect says that the agent, the moral agent, the person doing the act, does not actively will the negative result. So again, it's one of these things. If you have a situation like the trolley problem, you can say, well, look, I'm turning the wheel to avoid the 5. I know that it's going down the track to kill the 1 person, but I don't want to kill that 1 person. That's not my goal. So that makes it okay. And some other things that are part of that is that the agent cannot obtain the good effect without the bad effect. In other words, you can't turn on to a second sidetrack where there's nobody. You have to either go down the main track and kill the 5 workers, or turn off to the sidetrack where the 1 worker is. And the good effect results at least as directly as does the bad effect. Again, so the good, you're not running over the 5 workers, is a direct result of you turning the wheel. Just as you're turning the wheel, a direct result of that is running over the 1 person on the tracks. And finally, the good effect is sufficiently good to offset the bad effect. And here we say, look, saving 5 lives offsets the taking of the 1 life by going down the sidetrack. So in that way, using the doctrine of double effect, you can be a deontologist and still turn the wheel to go down the track. The main place that the doctrine of double effect is used in real life is in thinking about just war and what you may have heard called collateral damage. That that when countries go to war in modern warfare, inevitably civilians die. But the way that it's justified as still a moral war is that the intent is not to kill the civilians. The intent is to destroy a military target in the city, and destroying that military target makes it more likely for our side to win, and will save many lives in form of military casualties. So yes, we know that there will be some civilians killed if we drop these bombs, but we don't intend to kill the civilians. And the greater good that will come about that is that the war will be over more quickly and there will be less overall casualties. So by the doctrine of double effect, you can have a just war even when there are the deaths of non-combatants, which in most cases, killing non-combatants is against the rules of just war. So we had the utilitarians, the deontologists. Some of you also used virtue ethics and basically said that you would just use your general sensibilities about what's right and wrong, and that in that moment you have to make a decision, and according to your character you make the decision to turn the wheel to go down the sidetrack and kill the 1 worker. And I think that's perfectly legitimate set of moral reasoning. It is really fascinating, though, that no matter which of the types of moral reasoning we engaged, the answer was the same, except for the 1 person who would, as a true utilitarian, push the large man off the bridge into the trolley path to save the 5. But the rest of you were unwilling to do that, basically because you are saying that it would be wrong to murder 1 person who wasn't kind of already in the scenario, who wasn't already on the track, who wasn't already somewhat in a place of danger, that it was illegitimate to essentially, even those of you who are arguing from a utilitarian perspective, that it was illegitimate to use that person as a means to save, as a pure means to save the others' lives. And even as utilitarians, you could go that route, because you could say you're a rule utilitarian, and that it generally makes for a better, happier society if there's rules in place that you can't just decide to kill 1 person to save 5 other people, because then people would never feel safe. They would always be looking over their shoulder. It would be chaos. You couldn't have a good society if it was morally permissible to at any time sacrifice 1 person's life for the sake of 5. And so as a rule utilitarian, you can make that distinction between the case with the turning the wheel down the sidetrack and pushing the man off the bridge, and say, no, they're not exactly the same thing. There's a definite distinction between the two. Suzanne pointed out something really interesting too, and I think this is true, that when we're making these moral decisions, our emotions are involved too. And the truth is that we tend to kind of make our moral decisions. We go with what our gut says, and then we come up with a line of reasoning to justify that decision that we made based on our gut feeling. And you can see this because there's so many different arguments that the group here presented. That there's some virtue ethics people, there's some utilitarians, there's some deontological people. So it's kind of a reasoning afterward to support the decision. However, we can kind of ponder this a bit more. In other words, we can delve a little bit deeper to see, what would be the good moral rules to have in these kinds of situations. And I think it does lend itself toward either a deontological point of view where you can utilize the doctrine of double effect, or a rule utilitarian point of view where you have a rule that you can't just kill anybody in order to save more people. That's illegitimate. Or a virtue ethics point of view that says, we have the kind of character that would urge us to try to save as many lives as possible, but would still prevent us from harming somebody who is a bystander, who is not involved in the situation at all. And if we did not introduce that person into a deadly situation, it would be, it would not even be an issue. It wouldn't be a possibility. So those are some of my thoughts on this week's discussion. I hope that helps clarify some things for you. I'm really looking forward to our next class. And as you work on the paper, if you have any questions, if you want to bounce any ideas off me, you know how to get in touch with me. And again, I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Thanks.